Hey y'all, welcome to Adventures with Aggie, brought to you by the Ryan Martin Foundation. Today we have with us Steve Serio. He's a wheelchair basketball player for Team USA with 2 gold medals. He plays for the New York Rolling Knicks, and he's going to tell us about how he found PER4MAX and all that the PER4MAX community means to him. Please welcome Steve. Well, Steve, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Aggie. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thanks so much for making the time. I'm excited to learn more about you and all the awesome things you've done. But first, could you just kind of start with some background into who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for those of you who don't know, my name is Steve Serio. I am the co-captain of the men's wheelchair basketball team for Team USA. I've competed in the last 4 Paralympic Games. Um, we finished 4th in Beijing, which I don't recommend to your audience, winning bronze in London and winning back-to-back goals in Rio and in Tokyo. To provide a little bit more background, I was actually injured when I was 11 months old. I was born with a benign spinal tumor that went undiagnosed for the first 11 months of my life. During that time, the tumor became infected and inflamed and crushed my spinal cord, resulting in the incomplete paralysis of my lower extremity. So living with a disability, it's all I know. It's all I remember. Despite it, my parents were determined to give me a normal childhood. I went to a public school system. I had able-bodied friends. I played able-bodied sports to the best of my abilities. But inherently, my childhood was about fitting into a world that was not built for me. And I developed a lot of insecurities and a very limiting mindset because of my disability. And it wasn't until I found wheelchair basketball where I learned how to embrace those insecurities. And I learned that by embracing those insecurities, I was able to shatter any and all limitations anyone would ever try to place upon me. Basically, a turning point in my life was when I sat down in my first wheelchair basketball chair when I was about 15. And basketball has given me everything that I have today. It's made me the person, the teammate, the athlete, and the leader that I am. And I'm just so incredibly grateful that I found it.
Amazing. Thank you for setting the stage. That was awesome. I know your your background is not told by myself. I would love for you to do that. So that's kind of why we're here and speaking about your story. But I want to backtrack. Can you tell us how you found wheelchair basketball from the beginning and just about that time when the first time you got in the chair?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I mentioned, my childhood was about playing able-bodied sports, and basically, what my friends would do is they would tailor the rules so that I could just play. I was a big baseball player growing up, and basically, when it was my turn to hit, I would get up to the plate, I would hit the ball, and then one of my friends would run down to first, and I would take his or her place when the play was over. And that was kind of the way that my life progressed until I was 14, 15 years old, where the school board basically told me I wasn't able to play for insurance and liability reasons. And that was the first time in my life I ever felt disabled. Here are these people that didn't know anything about my abilities, didn't know anything about what I could do, basically telling me that I can't play with my friends anymore. So I needed to find an athletic outlet. And through a physical therapist, I realized that there was a wheelchair basketball team that played 10 minutes away from where I grew up, and I never knew about them. This was before social media. I might be showing my age a little bit, but this was before Instagram. This was before Google. This was before all that. So I just didn't know it even existed. And so I went down, and not having any expectations about the game, I kind of thought that they played on these little Fisher Price hoops for like little kids, because I didn't know how you shoot in a wheelchair. I didn't know if you had to dribble. I just literally did not have any expectations. But like I said, when I was 15, I went down for the first time and sat in a basketball wheelchair and just started pushing up and down the court, and not having any real basketball skills attached. But it was the first time I felt free from my disability. And I knew that this was going to be something that was going to allow me to be the best version of myself. And I like to tell people that since that very day of sitting in a basketball wheelchair for the first time, I haven't left the gym since.
That's so cool to see how you evolved as a person and as an athlete, kind of as your time went on. But I guess I want to fast forward now. At what point did you know that you wanted to go high performance, or that this was an option for you?
Yeah, to be honest, the high performance lifestyle was never the goal. I got recruited to go to university 2 years after I started playing by a number of different programs across the US. I ended up choosing the University of Illinois, but back then it was just a way to have fun, to be the best versions of myself, to challenge myself, and then to get an education. I didn't know that Team USA wheelchair basketball even existed. I didn't know anything about the Paralympics. And it was just a way to further myself as a human being. And then when I got to college under a pretty iconic coach by the name of Mike Frogley, he was the one that showed me how to be a high performing person, not only a high performing athlete, but a high performing student and a high performing leader. And he showed me what it was possible to do with a lot of hard work, with a lot of sacrifice, and the work of my support network and my team. The wheelchair Team USA came about. I made my first Team USA in 2005. I mean, an under 23 team, and it was right in the summer, but before I went to U of I. And I made my first men's team in 2006, my freshman year at U of I. So that was the time when I kind of saw what was possible, and I made the transition to be a high performance athlete as well.
Awesome. I want to talk about the Paralympics. Obviously, congratulations. Super exciting watching you. Lost lots of sleep in those weeks they were over there, but congrats. Super fun to watch.
Yeah, I know that the time zones were not ideal for our support network here in the States, but thank you for supporting us. Even though you all couldn't be there in person, we definitely felt the love.
Yes, I was screaming, making lots of sounds in the middle of the night. I'm sure my neighbors really enjoyed that, but
Yes.
It is what it is. It was well worth it.
Cool.
But I want to ask about the evolution of the Paralympics in the games that you've been in. How have you seen the games change? Obviously, I guess you can take into consideration COVID if you'd like to answer in a COVID way, but just as far as media coverage goes and just kind of growing the game itself, how have you seen that change over your time in this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the Paralympic movement and adaptive sports in general has gotten stronger and stronger as each year progresses. My first games in Beijing, that was the one where Michael Phelps basically just redefined what it was like to be an athlete. There was actually very, very limited coverage of the Paralympic Games in wheelchair basketball. London in 2008, that was a huge game changer for the Paralympic movement. That was the time where it was the first time where Paralympics and the Paralympic athletes felt like equals to our Olympic counterparts. And to be honest, as the Paralympic movement has progressed, the investment has progressed throughout Paralympics and the Paralympics athletes. So Nike has taken much more of an interest in inclusion in the Paralympics. Toyota here in 2020 has donated or invested an unprecedented amount of monetary funds to Paralympic athletes directly and into the Paralympic movement. And in Tokyo, there was a record coverage on NBC. So obviously the movement is progressing and headed in the right direction. To be a very, very small part of it is very rewarding. It's one of the reasons why I've stayed on as being a Team USA athlete for so long. But I truly believe that the turning point moment for me was the time that I found adaptive sports. Obviously, the wins are incredible and hugely important, but I truly believe that adaptive sports can play a huge role in people with disabilities' lives. And that's what I'm most passionate about today. I'm just so happy that the Paralympic movement has progressed to cover a number of different sports and can reach as many athletes as possible.
For sure. I think just from coming as an outsider a year ago when I started this show and kind of diving in head first to adaptive sport and not knowing anything about it, I think Tokyo really helped educate me just as a fan. Like even those videos that they were putting out like a few months in advance, like what is wheelchair basketball or what is this? I think those kind of educational pieces that the Paralympic movement has started to prioritize even more recently are helping people like me who talk about it all the time but don't know what they're talking about. But I love those pieces of it.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So many people were introduced to adaptive sports during the Tokyo Games. I had a number of friends and family just taking screenshots of our gold medal game just being on the primary NBC channel. And I like it's crazy to think about how many people were just flicking channels and maybe just saw wheelchair basketball for the first time. Granted, it was a fantastic game, and I'm sorry it was so stressful to everyone. Trust me, we didn't try to make it like that, but just the fact that so many people could have been introduced to wheelchair basketball and the adaptive sports movement in that moment, it's so incredibly humbling, and I'm just happy to be a part of it.
For sure. For sure. So what have you been up to since Tokyo? Rest period or no rest? No rest for Steve Serio? I don't know.
Well, to be honest, I have a number of sponsor obligations that I've done a lot of media. Um, Riding the high wave of a gold medal is expected, but also why we do it. So I've had a wonderful opportunity to be a part of a number of Toyota events and Nike events as well in the last 6 weeks. I've worked with the Challenge Athletes Foundation, which is a nonprofit based in San Diego that provides grants to kids with special needs for sporting equipment, which I absolutely love being a part of. So we're just trying to capture as much energy from the success in Tokyo as possible and to try to make the biggest impact. To be honest, I haven't even touched my basketball chair. I haven't stepped foot on court in about 8 weeks. We did get a chance to play at halftime of the Knicks preseason game, and let me tell you, I was very rusty. So that was a unique experience. But right now, I truly believe the impact that I can have off the court is more important than the impact that I can have on it. And so that's what I've just been trying to focus on right now.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Let me tell you also, one of my close friends was at that game, the Knicks preseason game.
Really?
And he FaceTimed me and he was like, do you know these people? Are they on your show? I was like, not yet, but Steve's coming. So that was awesome.
That's so awesome. I mean, like New York can feel kind of a huge, overwhelming place sometimes, but to kind of see those connections makes it super cool.
Absolutely. I was like, please cheer for Steve, cheer for him, yell
Yeah.
for him.
Yeah, I made a couple of shots. I did okay, but yeah, it was weird to be out there.
Yes, for sure. Awesome. Okay, I want to transition into PER4MAX. Obviously, why we are here. PER4MAX has been super, super helpful and awesome in helping me to share these stories on my show. But how did you first join the PER4MAX family and how did this come about?
Yeah, so I've been a PER4MAX athlete since I was 17. Since around my senior year of high school, freshman year of college, I had a number of friends that went to the University of Texas, Arlington. I played with an adult team my senior year of high school, and one of my teammates by the name of Eddie McGee, he went to University of Texas at Arlington and was really close with Willie. And he was the first person that told Willie, hey, you kind of have to look at this kid. From the very beginning, even before I was a sponsored athlete, PER4MAX family embraced me with open arms. Again, you're talking about a kid who didn't know anything about wheelchair basketball, didn't know anything about the history. And they were the first people that embraced me into the adaptive sports community. And while I would say that it's been a big part of my success on the court, the impact that PER4MAX has had on my life off the court is what I'm truly thankful for. Willie, like when Willie is a mad scientist, he designs these incredibly durable, strong, lightweight wheelchairs. But what he's really doing is he's allowing people with disabilities to realize their true potential within themselves. And he's somebody that has always kind of brought that back to my attention whenever my focus tends to deviate from the true goal. He's a leader in our community. He's someone who is the reason adaptive sports and the Paralympic movement is what it is today. Is a big reason is because of Willie Hernandez and the work that PER4MAX continues to do, not only with the impact in making incredible wheelchairs, but inclusion and equality and coming on podcasts like yours and spreading the message. So yeah, that they took a chance on me before I was who I am today. And I'm just incredibly grateful to be a part of the PER4MAX family.
I think that we should make a Willie fan club. I feel like everyone is like so excited about Willie, and I was kind of starstruck when I got to interview him on the show as well. But he definitely needs a fan club.
Willie's iconic, and he's such a character, and to have him be the face of something that people are so passionate about for so long just speaks to the impact that he's had on the community.
For sure, for sure. Awesome. Well, how would you describe the PER4MAX athletes and families, or who are these people that make up the family?
Well, to be honest with you, the one word that comes to mind when I think of PER4MAX is family. They're a group that not only makes incredible wheelchairs, but tries to bring in as many athletes as humanly possible from various sports. Obviously, wheelchair basketball is a huge part of what they do and a huge part of adaptive sports here in the US, but they have CrossFit athletes, they have extreme sport athletes, they have athletes on the male and female side of things. They don't pigeonhole themselves, and they never say, no, we can't do this. No, we can't build a wheelchair for this activity. They're always challenging themselves, which is something I love to be a part of. They have an incredible presence on social media, which again is huge for the next generation of adaptive sports athletes coming up. They just do things the right way. And like I said, not only are they super supportive, but the one word that comes to mind when I think of PER4MAX is family.
Absolutely. I'm jealous of your hoodie. I need to get a PER4MAX hoodie too.
And they have incredible swag.
I love it.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Cool. I have kind of a last series of questions that we can use to wrap up the show. Two of them were submitted by some of our followers, which is really exciting. But first one for you, if you did not pick up basketball, what would you see yourself doing?
Yeah, wow, that's a great question, and one that's really hard to think about because basketball, not only has it given me so much, but it's so much of who I am.
Yeah.
I would like to think that I am an athlete first. That's kind of baked into my DNA. So I would definitely be doing something athletic, whether that is racing or tennis or CrossFit. I really can't answer that question. But when you're an athlete, you know it from the very beginning. And I was just never born to sit on the sidelines. So I would be doing something athletically. I would like to think that I would still be trying to make an impact that I am today with spreading the word about adaptive sports and the impact that I can have on kids with disabilities. I would hope that would be something that I would still be passionate about because it's what I'm passionate about now. So I don't know, to be honest, I've never thought of that question because basketball has given me so much and I'm so grateful for it. So hopefully we can allow all types of people with disabilities to find their version of what basketball has given me.
For sure. When I was reading that question, I was like, I have no idea what Steve is going to say because I think Steve Serio and I think basketball. So I'm not sure how you're going to take that, but great answer. I love it.
Thanks.
I guess a follow-up to that, what advice would you give to young athletes who are looking to maybe enter adaptive sport or pick up wheelchair basketball, but they're hesitant or don't know what to do next?
Yeah, well, for those of people who are hesitant, I would just say you really grow and you find yourself during uncomfortable moments. For me, I didn't know anything about adaptive sports or wheelchair basketball when I went down just to try it. And that was the single most impactful life-defining moment of my entire life that I didn't plan for, that I didn't know was coming, but ultimately it happened. The thing I always tell young athletes is to use their losses and to use quote unquote negative experiences as a way to better yourself. People with disabilities are very familiar with that concept because not only are we living in a world that was not built for us, we're constantly reminded that we have to do things differently. However, it makes us stronger, it makes us more resilient, and it makes us more interesting people. So for athletes, I tell them the same thing. I've learned more from my losses and my failures than I have my successes. And ultimately, I am the athlete and the player and the leader I am today because I've gone through some really, really difficult painful moments with a lot of the athletes that you talked with already previously on your podcast. I have, Matt Scott. He's someone I've looked up to for years, but he was my absolute rival in college. And trust me, I have lost to Matt way more times than I've succeeded. And he's the reason why I am one of the players I am today. So don't shy away from challenges. Don't shy away from those losses. Don't shy away from those negative experiences. Embrace them, and embrace them as ways to grow and better yourself, because ultimately, that's the way I have progressed.
Absolutely. I love it. I love ending the show on these kinds of like series of not all advice questions, but themes, tips, and things to give people to take away from at the end of the show. Let's see, another one that was submitted by one of our listeners. Do you have a favorite quote or motto that you live by?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it goes back to what I just said previously. I always remind myself to take the positives from every experience, no matter if the outcome is favorable or not. Just thinking about it, the one thing I do tell myself every day is to find the power in small victories. People think that teams or Team USA athletes are just created overnight. And what it really is consistent hard work and sacrifice day in and day out. So you don't just become a Team USA athlete one day. It's evolved and shaped and molded over years and decades of hard work and sacrifice. But the power of the small victories each and every day, ultimately you'll look back and you won't be able to understand the point at which you've gotten to. And I just went to an event recently where I had all 3 medals on that I won all at once, and it was the first time in my life that I put all 3, the bronze and 2 golds, on simultaneously. And I just remember thinking in that moment, like, oh my God, I cannot believe I've come this far. And that was never the goal. I never kind of took the time to embrace that in the moment, but looking back on it now, is because of those small victories each and every day.
That's such a cool moment. I love that you had that. And I love that you realized all of the awesome things you've done.
Yeah.
That's great. I think that The Power of Small Victories should be a book written by Steve Serio. I see that in the future.
Well, we don't put limits on life. So maybe as I'm kind of transitioning into a semi-retirement or whatever type of retirement it looks like, I'll have a little bit more free time. So that's definitely a possibility.
I see it. I see it in the future. Cool. I have 2 more questions for you. These are 2 that I ask every guest that comes on the show. But first, what or who would you kind of say is the most important person or moment in your sporting career? You can take this as the who's your mentor kind of question. But yeah, I guess who would you consider somebody who really pushed you in your sporting career?
Yeah, so I will take the mentor side of things, and there's a few people that come to mind. The first one is my coach at University of Illinois, by the name of Mike Frogley. He was the first person that taught me the game at an extremely high level, but taught me what it was like to succeed on the court as well as off it. Adaptive sports were actually started after World War II, and people came back to help acclimate them from the war. And it was founded, wheelchair basketball was founded at U of I. So it was one of the reasons why I attended there. I wanted to be a part of something bigger than myself. And my coach, Mike Frogley, was the one who taught me how to do that. On the court, my old Team USA captain, Paul Schulte, he was just somebody, not only is an icon in wheelchair basketball, but he was a wonderful leader and a wonderful person. And I learned so much from him as I was kind of the up and coming guy. And then the other person, the guy who has been by my side the entire USA career, somebody I looked up to when I was up and coming, and I pinched myself every single summer that I get to be his teammate. I've already mentioned him, is Matt Scott. He's just one of the most positive, one of the most genuinely great humans I've ever met. And the fact that I get to call him a teammate and a brother and a gold medal winning teammate and brother, it's just incredibly, it's incredible honor. And obviously when you're a part of great teams, each of your teammates holds a special relationship to you. And I'm just really grateful that I got a chance to share those moments with a genuinely great guy like Matt.
For sure, for sure. I love, you have such an awesome circle around you. Those are really cool people that are on your list. I love it.
Yeah,
Love that for you.
absolutely.
Yeah, cool. Let's see. Last question. What is one piece of advice you would give to younger Steve?
One piece of advice I would tell a younger version of myself is to embrace each moment. Ultimately, the journey comes down to a lot of highs and a lot of lows. But as long as you keep progressing forward, keep learning, keep growing, you're going to be amazed by where you end up. And there were plenty of moments where I thought that this lifestyle was too difficult. I would never be able to accomplish my dreams. I just suffered a really bad loss, professionally or personally, and this just wasn't for me. But then you start to string a couple wins together. You start to see yourself become not only a better athlete, but a better person. And you know that this isn't a choice. This is just who you are. So I would tell my younger version of myself to embrace each moment, because each step along the way is just as important, whether it's positive or negative.
For sure. My favorite question of the show. I love ending this way. But Steve, thank you so, so much for sharing your story and giving all kinds of awesome advice and stories. But yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the work that you're doing to promote the Paralympic movement and just spreading the impact that the sports can have on each person. So thank you.
For sure. Awesome. Well, I'll stop recording. Steve, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Join us for another episode of Adventures with Aggie coming on Thursday.